Welcome to the special finance meeting of January 23rd, 2023. I want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, including our near neighbors, the Sianu First Nation and the Sauk First Nation. Committee, are there any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve, please?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mayor Little, second by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Public participation. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? If so, please come up to the podium, state your name and the street in which you live.
Good evening. Averill, Windfall Road. On the school site, December 12th, First Court gave a presentation on the school site. It was informative, but at the same time raised many questions. Not all finances are available on the breakdown between the commercial, MACA, and district portions of the school. Mr. Corr indicates we are turning a corner and soon the school will be maintaining itself in that instinct and Mile Zero will be paying rent rather than providing in-kind payments. The district will retain the auditorium as rentable space, although still under renovations. We have yet to designate a manager of the entire school site. I don't understand from the detailed budget what the common costs are and how they are allocated across the school building. Looking at the latest budget for total net operating expenditures, it indicates we will be operating with a deficit of $80,000 per year from 2023 to 2027. My question: is the intention of the district to have a profit, a loss, or a break-even status from the school site? Thank you. I have copies, including Sue Lynn.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Anybody else like to speak?
Thank you. Gary Smirfitt, 3950 Gilbert Drive. I was concerned about what I consider the lack of meaningful information that was provided at the last budget discussion of the Finance Committee, and so I sent an email to Mayor and Council and the CFO expressing that, and the email is placed on this agenda. It wasn't intended to be placed on the agenda, it was just sent out to say, can we get some more information, please? Last Friday, I was here for another meeting, and at the same day, I had looked on the website and saw that the information was posted for this meeting. And it still seemed to me to be lacking details. So I popped down to City Hall, and I was told that the finance consultant, Sam Weber, was still working on the detailed budget sheets. And I was later provided those by City Hall staff. Now, they weren't posted on the website, but I was provided with them. It seems to me that council, in looking at tonight's agenda, or committee, and the last one, is being asked to provide direction to staff on the budget without really a complete picture of where our finances are at and where they're going. And I won't repeat what was in my email, but there's things that are of concern. One is the policing costs, and one is the general government costs. Well, the general government, I just use that as an example of one department, but on policing, we have a expectation of $600,000. So I looked at the provincial government policing costs, and the average for municipalities between 5,000 and 15,000, which is where we fit, was about $220 per capita per year. That brings us in at $1.1 million. And not the 600,000 we're looking at, So that's just one example of my concern, that how can we look at these extras that we're being asked to fund, additional staff, the one-timers that we always get every year at this time thrown at you. We don't know exact data of what's going on. We don't know exactly what we're going to be charged by the province for the RCMP. We don't know what's going to be coming at us from Colwood, Langford, and View Oil for our share of the building rental. Okay, that's one thing. We don't know about the new fire hall as well. That's a capital item. But in the short minute and a half left, I hope, I'll just hit on one section that I did today. I spent 30 minutes going through the general government section and asking questions and wrote down notes here. I have 3 pages of notes, but I'm only going to highlight a few of the sections. I asked you to look to your sheet on general government. And if you look down at 2750 account, that's the Treaty Advisory Committee. This is under general government at the very beginning of your Treaty Advisory, $4,500 budget. We spent zero. Next year a budget of $4,500 and continue. That's been in there for a couple of years. It's not a sense being spent. Why are we being taxed for that? Look down at casual wages. We had zero budget, and it came in at $28,000 this year, and a budget of $6,500 for next year. What's happening there? Severance pay. We had a budget of $7,000. We spent zero, but we're looking at another budget for next year and continuing on $7,000. Just continuing on with the line item, which causes taxes to go up, but nothing being spent. I'll jump to the big ones. Contracted services, that's 2701. The budget was $55,000, we spent $63,000. I'd ask you, on what? And then a budget of $55,000 again in 2023. On what? Because I'm aware we contracted to Freedom of Information. We brought in extra staff for that, and we spent $25,000 on that roughly, and looking for another $30,000 in 2023. These contracted services, that's a lot of money. And then below that, on 2702, 2122, my account numbers are wrong here, but there's resources for staff. I asked, what the heck is that? We've got a budget of $90,000. Not a cent was spent in 2022, but yet we the citizens were taxed for $90,000. And there's $90,000 put in for 2023. You know, can someone tell me what resources for staff are that nothing is spent on it? We have business development. The budget for 2022 was $10,000. There was $522 spent. Okay? And the 2023 budget is, take a guess, $10,000. You know, we have interest on performance bonds. Now that's money that we pay because someone has given us money as a performance guarantee. The budget is $2,500 last year, and the budget for next year is $2,500. Guess how much we spent? You can read as good as me, it's $3. Like, why are we paying those taxes? Then, there's the one-timers at the very bottom. The one-timers. We've spent $60,000. I think my number's right, there's $60,000. But we're projected to spend $135,000. Well, if we haven't spent it by now, why is that number in there as projected expenditure? Because what that does, members of this committee and council, is it gives a false picture of what our cost of operating was last year. And when you look at that without having all the details sorted out, you say, oh my God, we're running a deficit of $200,000 last year. We have to raise our taxes. Well, when it all is said and done, come May, you say, geez, we had a surplus of $200,000. And I have to tell you, that's what I've seen as a member of the audience happening here in the past. Okay? And I would ask you, if you doubt me, go and look at the sheets that were provided to council in years gone by on a regular basis as to projected budget this time of the year, and then for the previous year, and then look ahead 3 or 4 months when you got the final statements and see what the situation was. And then people come running in saying, we've got lots of extra money, I want a one-timer for this and one-timer for that. Well, I would say with all due respect, right now the financial situation and any extra money that's left over should be stuck aside and said, until we know what the heck's happening here with policing and the fire hall and lots of other things going on, we really shouldn't be making these decisions that you're being asked to make in the information in front of you. And in the package I gave you, you see that in the past, whenever there was a budget increase of more than $2,000 in any line item, you were given a big explanation as why. And this hasn't happened. You haven't been told where the COVID money is. Where do you stand with that? You know, I humbly suggest until you get all these answers in front of you, you can't be, you can do whatever the heck you want. I would ask you to consider getting a total picture before you commit to additional things in the budget that aren't required to run the day-to-day operation of this municipality. Thank you very much, and I apologize for going beyond the allotted 3 minutes, and I do get sometimes a little long-winded and emotional. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Mike Horner, 5600 Rocky Point Road. I just want to talk to the roads budget and just give my spin on as a civil contractor and what the increases we're seeing in the industry are, and just take that into account when you're looking at the budgets for that. What we're looking at as the Island Equipment Owners Association, which I'm a member of, who sort of control pricing on hired equipment, trucks and so on. We put in a 14% increase on all hired equipment and trucks this year. Aggregates, your gravels, your sands, all that stuff, they have an increase of, it's a little bit skewed, but it's an 8.5% increase on the base product, and this month there's a 2.5% increase as a fuel surcharge, a fuel recovery rate. Pipe materials, your concrete precast, actually I was just informed the concrete precast, that would be your manholes, catch basins, stuff like that, curbs. They're going up 15%, but as a whole, your pipes, your culverts, stuff like that are a 25 to 35% increase. Tires for trucks and equipment, stuff like that, 30 to 50% increase. Your actual trucks, your not pickups, but heavy trucks that we'll have to replace at some time, 25 to 35% increase on that. The cost of heavy equipment to purchase new, 20 to 30% increase. And the other thing that we should think about is the cost of exporting material for like the ditching and the shouldering and all that stuff. In years gone by, all that material went to a local fill site, which was inexpensive and close by. Right now what's happening is everybody's struggling to put their fill somewhere with their rapid construction and stuff like that. So those fill sites, there's only a few licensed and legitimate fill sites that are highly regulated, which is good for the environment, but it's sort of a CDRD area, so it's north of the Malahat, and a lot of the stuff goes to Duncan. So understanding the cost of that, there's going to be your average tipping fee of about $55 per box is how they would quantify it, but the cost to move that material that far of a distance means bigger trucks with trailers on it. So to do that, if we were to load those trucks, say roadside, you would need bigger equipment on the roadside to do that, and you'd have a higher rate and a longer standby time. Or if we were to do it with our own machinery and our own trucks, we would need a local place to, say, stockpile it, and then reload it and send it to a fill site. The other thing that's come up in the last year or so, and just about every fill site's implemented it now, or legitimate fill site, is they require materials testing to guarantee no contaminants are in the material. there's a chance that we do have that, like salt would also be a contaminant, which would be in our ditching material. So there's a couple ways to test that. Would be they would test it in the ditch in situ, what they call, or if we stockpile it somewhere locally, then we could do bulk sampling and then take it to the appropriate facility. But I think the cost of exporting that ditch material and so on, that might be, I would venture a guess about 400 to 500% increase on our costs with that one. So there's, that's sort of what I'm looking at. If I look at the 2022 budget to 2023 budget, we got like a 2.5% overall increase, or maybe a 10.5% increase from year to date to 2023 budget. So, I recognize that maybe not all these line items would be skewed by that, but there's significant increases in all of these items that I just mentioned. Thank you.
Could I ask a question to the chair?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Mike Horner?
Mike Horner.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Horner. Can you give us, the committee, I don't have the expertise in roads, but if you could give us some information. The increases that we're seeing, is this due to, or probably a combination, the supply chain, cost of labor, cost of supplies? What is driving this?
All of it. It's the same thing as our groceries. Groceries are way up. It's the same sort of thing. I think there's labor shortages, there's supply chain issues. If you think about fuel, oil, tires, those are all petroleum-based products. Those are all way up. We've seen what's gone on with fuel over the last year. As far as the equipment, the hired equipment cost, our increase last year, we implemented a fuel surcharge, which we've never done before. Every year we look forward and say, okay, well, we increase the rates 1-2% based on equipment costs and what that fuel prediction may be. Last year it went so high we had to put a fuel surcharge on it that went, say, from like 4% up to 16.5%, I think, in the summer months. So this year, with the cost of trucks and equipment and everything else, plus the cost of fuel, we did a 5% rate increase and got rid of the fuel surcharge and put a 9% charge on rate just to cover that fuel up to X%. So, that's one cost. Labor's an issue. It doesn't seem like labor's up right across the board the last little while, but that seems reasonably stable at this time. But yeah, everything just seems to be up, significantly.
Okay, and if I'm not correct, it's now legislated that any of the ditching material, any of that kind of material needs to be, it's not whether any material needs to be tested. It's no longer a optional thing. It needs to be tested.
You can still find willy-nilly test sites or dump sites. There's still a few around, but like a legitimate fill site where we would take all of our material. They're basically like all the capital city paving affiliates. They've got lots of gravel pits, and part of the mining is they would fill in their old holes as they're sort of expiring. None of these people take any material without testing results, so, and like I say, ditching materials probably may or may not be a problem, but I think the solution to that would be, and nobody really wants to hear it, but finding a suitable site in Machosen that we could regulate and manage our own materials, something like that. Of course, that's probably the most logical way to do it, but otherwise it's going to be a big budget required for it, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Question on this. Do we have a sense of how much ditching material we produce in an average year? I probably don't have that on the tip of your tongue, but yeah, sorry, through you, Councillor Thompson.
So everything Mike's mentioned is correct. It's something that Public Works crew has been struggling with, I should say that, for the past 2022. So you will note that there's hardly any ditching done because of this conundrum that the crew has been facing. I cannot tell you how much it is. Obviously, I don't have that information. But what we're working with right now is knowing fully aware that the testing requirement has been in place, and now, and like Mike said, unless you find somebody who's willing to accept it and test it, which is something that I would recommend, because that would put the district at risk if we're caught finding that there is contaminated material on the property, even though the operator accepted it. We're not doing our due diligence by not testing them, just dumping it. So the scenario that we're working with is using the $100,000 of budget from the past and then working backwards to see how much will that give us. Because there's still a lot of costs that still has to be determined. You know, that all those trucks, additional trucks, and the additional pump has to go across the Malahat, the testing fees, all this stuff. So we're essentially making the money fit, making our needs fit our money, so not the other way around. So we're not saying that we need to ditch whatever tons, we'll put the budget, but we're saying, here's the budget that we have, how much can we ditch? So you're working backwards.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks. Thanks for the insights.
Anyone else like to speak? Okay. All right, so let's move on to reports. So we have the staff report for the draft 2023-2027 five-year financial plan. And there's an overview, so we'll start the committee discussion. We also have an opportunity for the public to be able to speak as well. So council, how would you like to proceed? Would you like to go through the one-time operating costs or the spreadsheet first? Yes.
Just want to mention that this report was presented at the last meeting with no direction from the committee. So it would really be really helpful if you go through the items on the report and then just, or if there's any items that this committee feels that should be added that isn't on the third report. So that would just give a better direction to start the process on, and then we can go away, I can go away and update all the sheets as necessary for our next discussion. So at this point, it's just, here's the information that's been presented, and do not have any feedback from the committee, whether there's any items you want to add, any items you want to remove. So I think that's probably the best approach going forward.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is it possible that we could do this in real time in terms of having a spreadsheet before you on the computer? And when we go through items, when we decide yes, no, have that as a draft Excel spreadsheet. Have that as a draft Excel spreadsheet. And as we go through and delete or add, that we have a live document so that we're able to proceed knowing the full picture. Is that possible?
We can do it for the next meeting.
Yeah, I know, I'm not asking for this meeting, but for the next one in terms of, because then that would update us along how we're doing in terms of our budgeting. That would be helpful.
Okay. Yes, Councillor.
I just have a favor to ask. Somehow I seem to have everything but my spreadsheet. I just wondered if I could get a copy, please. Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, so then we shall start on the one-time operating request. Yes? Okay. So the first one on there is for the building department, and the description, review and update building fees bylaw for $15,000. The current building permit fees bylaw was last reviewed in 1995. A comprehensive bylaw review will ensure the full cost of building inspection is recovered through user fees. The fees will also include replacement of the building truck.
Okay.
I updated the committee previously that I've managed to talk the consultant down to $10,000, but I didn't want to change the numbers because it'll be different from the report that was presented. So the proposed cost is about $10,000.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Donaldson.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, the fees include replacement of the building truck. Is that is it fair to put that into this amount? Shouldn't that be broken out into capital?
That sentence is meant to say that as part of the fee calculation, it's going to be a full cost analysis. That means not
I
just
see.
overhead and the direct cost, but also to replace our assets.
Thank you. Yeah, gotcha.
Yes, Mayor, Liz.
So this is a departure from what we've done in the past. It's an added expense in terms of bylaw review. We haven't in the past contracted this out. I must say at this point that I'm concerned about approving one-time operating costs when, as Gary Smirfitt pointed out, we've got significant costs this year that we didn't have in the last council. So we have the policing costs, which will be retroactive to April of 2022, that we've also got to keep in mind here. We also have the other significant costs will be the fire hall, which absolutely needs replacing. That has been moved down for the last 20 years, and it has landed in our lap. It's leaking like a sieve. We are putting Band-Aids on it. It needs to be addressed, I think, in this term. That's a matter of debate, I suppose. But the point is we've got considerable costs coming in this term and in this year in particular with the policing costs, and we don't have a handle on that yet. We will have more information this week and next week and the following week, but we are, I'm uncomfortable approving one-times when we've got this hanging over our head. We don't have a handle on what that will be. What I'll reiterate with what Mr. Smirfitt said is if you estimate looking at other populations in British Columbia between the per capita 5 and 15,000, it averages to what Mr. Smirfitt said, 221 or 220 per capita. That works up to about 1.2 million. There'll be extra costs for policing. So we've got to be careful. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you. Councillor Gray?
Yes, so if I understand our process correctly, what we're going to do is go through the list here, starting with the building review and updated building fees bylaw. And we will either say, yeah, that looks important to us, keep it on the list, or we'll say, don't like it, put it to the side. And then we may come back and look at what we put to the side at another time when we find out how much money we've got available.
Okay, so generally the one time, is my understanding, is from surplus. So that's why I asked the question if you would like to forego this and work on the spreadsheet. And as our CFO says in her report here, she's looking for a recommendation from us at the end of all of this. Correct, yes. So, and what Councillor Little, or what Mayor Little is saying is that we do have some very significant costs ahead of us, and we're not alone. This is across the region, probably across the country, in an economic crisis, correct? But locally, we have an incredible debt load in the school. We have policing costs, which are quite unknown at this point. Still, we're waiting for that. We've been waiting for nearly a year on this, if not longer. Yes, the fire department, which I have yet to see even on a line item. The steering committee was established last year, and I've had a couple of meetings, but there needs to be more work and more investigation, but that is also on the horizon. So we have a number of different things. Sure,
I think I understand all of that. My take on it was that the numbers that Mr. Smirfitt's referring to will gradually become clear as the accounts are being finished, and that information will come to us. So reaching for that first, not complete yet, let's wait till it gets a little bit further down the path. But now we've got the chance, we could just say, well, no one-time requests, we're out of that business because we have these other things. I would prefer that we go through and say which of these things are important to us, so we can sort of let the CFO know where we are in each one. And then that's maybe we can knock off a few of these things so they're not there as one-time requests. They may be on a subsidiary list. They don't have to disappear into nothingness, but just give a sense of their priorities. Then when things get going a little bit further, we'll be, more, it'll be a little bit clearer when we look at our line-by-line sheets. So I would comment on the first one, that this has been advised to us, that came from staff, and the idea is to clean it up. And there was talk, certainly in election, of getting more money out of building permits and that kind of thing. Looks like something we should probably leave on our agenda. 10 grand, see where it comes next.
Councillor Shukin?
Well, I agree with Councillor Gray, and I'm just wondering though if we could assign almost a ranking to each one-time item, just as an initial thing. It could be as easy as 3, 2, 1. And I'm not exactly sure which way it would go, but yeah, just I was trying to think about, again, I like everything on the list, but how do you prioritize? So yeah.
Mary Lou?
Yeah, actually, I like the way that you both pointed this out. What you mentioned was priorities. It's not that these aren't important, it's just prioritizing, given the fiscal situation that we're in, given the recession that we may be going into. And I agree, I think that would be a good way. Maybe could we do it on 5, square 5?
Okay, with 1 being high priority?
Mm-hmm.
Yes? Okay. Shall we do that?
Sure.
All right, so for the first one, the review and update of the building fees bylaw, can I see a show of hands for 1 being the highest priority? 1.
I give it a 2.
You give it a
Nice
2.
to have, and I'd rank it high because I think that this is a revenue generator ultimately,
Mhm.
or should be seen as.
Councillor?
Yeah, I'd probably give it a 2 as well.
Mary Lou?
I'd give it a 4. It's important, but not this year.
Okay, and I would agree that it's not as important this year. So we have a tie, we have 2 2s and we have 2 4s.
Councillor Donaldson, you know what I might suggest is going the other way.
Okay.
If it's highly ranked, it's a 5. And actually what you can do is add up all the numbers. You can just take the raw numbers from us and add them up, and the higher the number.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
May I suggest that you just,
Sure.
instead of giving a number, you
Okay.
just go medium, high, low. And if it's low, it's can still remain on the list, the low list,
Yeah.
in case it comes back. But if it's high, the next version, you'll see them on the list. But after you see the comprehensive numbers, you may say, okay, well, maybe it's high, but it's not that high now
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you have the whole package.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Want to redo it, or you've got it for the first one?
Well, I've got, yeah, I do have 1 high and 2 lows and 2 mediums.
Okay.
Okay.
So we moving on to the planning one?
Yes, so the planning one for the parking plan, 1 for the high,
Low? Oh, sorry.
low, we're starting at the low, okay, low,
I'm going to go medium on this one.
okay.
I'm gonna go high.
And great.
Yeah, and I would say that we had that report from Chris Core a few weeks ago, and he was certainly making a proposal. There was more paved space we could use there. If we think about it in terms of the covering over the septic with some special covers, sounds like it would be a capital cost, but that would almost immediately give us a better parking situation. We also have in our lease arrangements, whether people want to pay for parking, there's other options. I would put this at low right now.
I would say low too, okay, so it is definitely a low. Okay, and for, again, in planning, the agricultural plan, in brackets here, it's got 2024, so, yes, Councillor Atwood.
Just a question about this one. When Robin Tunnicliffe made a presentation to council last year, she requested, and this was done a couple of times, requested $20,000 for the agricultural plan, suggesting that they would raise the money for the rest of the cost. So I'm just kind of wondering why it's come up at $40,000 now.
The full amount was 40,000,
Yeah.
and yeah, the 20,000, I think they were trying to be really gracious and actually not having to fundraise. I'm not sure what their goals are to fundraise or where they're actually even going to find the time to it. They've not had a meeting since last spring, so I can't even answer that fully. Perhaps Mayor Little would have more information.
Yeah, so that was last year, when, right after the agricultural forum, when the recommendations was made from the ministry to move forward on an agricultural plan. We did know that, as the council liaison to the Ag Committee, we did know that the agricultural plan could be taken from other communities, but it would still cost 40 to 50,000. The idea of having a volunteer do that, it just is not feasible. It's a great amount of work. We could, if it is the appetite of the committee, to reduce that to 20,000 and put the onus on the agricultural committee, if that's what you're suggesting, Councillor Epp.
Well, that's what they suggested.
Yeah, but that was last year. So they're wanting an agricultural plan for this year. Had we said yes last year, then they could have fundraised for this year. So it's not, that would be putting them over by another year.
And I can say they actually did try to apply for a grant just before Christmas, but they were turned down based on our proximity to an urban community.
Okay.
Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I just wonder if we could consult with the agricultural committee and ask them what the figure would be this year.
Mm-hmm.
I see this as a priority, but I'm taken back by the numbers.
Yeah, I believe that this is a priority. This will open up the opportunity for them to be able to apply for grants to support their work in the community. And not just them, but just, up and coming farmers, small scale, large scale.
Are we still all on board though to defer until 2024, even if it is dropped to 20,000?
No, I wouldn't be on board with that.
Okay,
No.
so if it's 20,000, we might proceed with it.
Yeah,
This
I would think so, because what the situation again is that the agricultural committee cannot apply. We as a district cannot apply for any OPMs or other people's money in terms of provincial government money for agriculture, and it's big right now, especially with the floods, the heat domes. There's a huge emphasis on food security and seed security. So there are many grants available. We cannot apply for them without an agricultural plan. It's a bit of like a catch-22. I see you looking like this is, it is a circle. And so, unfortunately, sometimes we have to spend money to get money. And this is one of those cases we cannot say, and I've tried to apply for grants, and they say, great, we haven't heard from a chosen ever. We'd love to help, attach your agricultural plan, and we're away. We don't have an agricultural plan. So we're in this conundrum, and I feel uncomfortable leaving this till 2024.
Okay.
So they have a couple of different issues, so we're going to rank this. Do we want to change it to 2023?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And therefore, do we want to go with the 40,000 or the 20,000? And shall we rank it? Depending on what year.
I would rank it high if it was 20,000 in this year. And as much as I would like to rank it high at 40,000 and this year, I don't know if I could do that.
Okay, so as it's written, it's 40,000 for 2024. Let's rank it at that.
Well, let's, I think I would also agree with that. I would rank it high with 2023 at 20,000.
Okay, well let's see which one we can do. So let's do the first ranking then. So for 20,000 at 2023, let's see a show of hands for a low ranking, medium, and high ranking. Okay.
And I'd just like some feedback from the committee.
Yeah, that's good. Say that again. I don't know if everybody heard that.
Sorry, I'm just looking for feedback from the committee.
Okay. And so if we were to do the 40,000, do we have a low ranking? Yeah, one. Medium? One. And high ranking? Oh, okay, so we will go with the 20,000 at 2023 and feedback from the committee. Thank you. So the climate action plan that is before you, we discussed this at a council meeting as well. This is, as Councillor Gray could probably correct me if I'm wrong, is in addition to the 10,000 we've already spent for PINA, right? Okay. A low ranking, none, medium, one, and high ranking, yeah, high ranking.
Through the chair, could I ask Councillor Gray to give our consensus on that, why this is important and where we are at in the climate action plan?
Sure, and I think certainly, and it'll be coming up later on in council meeting. We received, we went back to the consultant after this council had talked about including adaptation measures in addition to greenhouse gas emission measures in our climate plan. And the consultant returned, our planner spoke with the consultant and laid things out and came back with a carry-on, just a greenhouse gas emission plan, or a plan that included basically a book exercise going through various other reports and the CRD reports and all of that without any public participation. They could do the job for a medium price, and then a higher price they would look at, although I described, plus a public meeting with council to go through the adaptation measures. And it was the view of the group here when we met as Environment Committee that it was worthwhile to have the public input, public process for the purposes of being a more targeted plan, but also one that allowed some community involvement and community buy-in. And so that was the recommendation we made to council, and we'll see it later tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, another one under planning for the shoreline protection plan, also discussed at a council meeting. Yes, Councillor Gray.
If I could just speak to that. So at the Environment Committee, this came, or was it a previous finance meeting? I'm not sure. At any rate, the request was made that I speak to Gary Fletcher and also to neighboring districts, municipalities. So I've reached out to Gary, and we have a meeting coming this week. And also I've reached out to Councillor Colwood, who I'll meet later this week, and I can report back on that. I'm thinking this had come from staff initially, and Mary Little, I think the question you posed, well, what did Gary advise us? Gary Fletcher is very involved in shoreline protection and shoreline study and that kind of thing. And so his initial reaction was that there may well be some very decent mapping out there that will help us in our planning. And he's going to investigate that. Meanwhile, I'm going to talk to the planner and talk to Councillor in Colwood and just sort of start that process. So I can come back to the next meeting and report on this one if we want to just do equivocal at the moment or whatever you like.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's great. Thank you for that. That's the information that I was looking forward to in terms of voting on this. So maybe we can leave this item and then go on to the next, depending on what other people feel. It's just there's a lot of information on Gary Fletcher, Mr. Fletcher's site that used to be here at the district, and I'm in favor of using other information that we have, and also other information from other areas on Vancouver Island on the coast on this. So
okay,
thank you.
So we won't rank this one. We will wait for more information.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And so on to engineering subdivision servicing bylaw update.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So just a couple good news updates, if you will. For the subdivision servicing bylaw and the rainwater management bylaw, I've spoken to contract engineer, and he's indicated that he's able to update those two bylaws within his contracted hours, so there'll be no additional cost.
Okay,
So just update those with you.
okay, that's very good
No
news.
incremental cost.
So no cost. Thank you.
I should say no cost, no incremental cost.
No cost to make that. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, and on to Public Works, the lighting for Dutno Road. Yes, Councillor.
I just wondered, not really knowing this road, I was gonna drive down there, but why exactly does that road have street lights in our dark sky policy when nobody else does?
I don't have that information. Yes?
My understanding of it was part of, used to be part of Colwood when we somehow we acquired it back in, I'm not sure, 80s. And that, so it came with Colwood standards. It has curbs and gutter and overhead lighting. So, anybody hears anything?
Oh, go ahead.
When-
Can you come to the mic so that the recording records your...
For the record, I was the municipal engineer in Colwood when it incorporated up until the year 2001. What the CFO said is basically what the situation was. Prior to the incorporation of Colwood, there was a Colwood Fire Protection District, and as part of that, they paid for street lighting within their budgetary function. Machosen incorporated, and when Machosen incorporated, it took in the Albert Head area, which included the Dutnell Street, which was built to a different standard, for whatever reason, I don't know, than the rest of the communities. Colwood didn't have much in the way of underground street lighting, but that street did have ornamental street lighting. It also has, I believe, curb and gutter in it as well. So when we incorporated here, that was turned over to us as a responsibility, as well as the hydro pole mounted streetlights are our responsibility. That's the situation.
Just a comment. What I heard from one of the residents was that it was a part of the subdivision approval process in terms of the lighting was guaranteed and that they have to carry that forward, whether it's Colwood or Machosen. Is that the case?
Well, the lighting was constructed, and then, I was also approving officer for subdivision. What happens is the developer walks away. They've built it to the standard. It's accepted by the community. So the street lighting was accepted by the Colwood Fire Department, and it then became their street lighting to maintain and continue up. And now it's District Machosen street lighting to maintain and continue up. Or the district could decide for some reason, if it wanted to, that it's going to abandon it completely. I don't think personally that's a very good idea, but it's your street lighting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's rank the. Yes.
Sorry,
Yes.
I'm with Councillor Epp. I'm unfamiliar with this road, and if it is not a safety matter, or if it is a safety matter, that would swing my vote or my ranking one way or the other. So, any input? And the other companion question is, do we have to maintain the lights? So,
If I might add again, shouting loud, it's also the road that leads to the DND Albert Head base.
okay.
And as you know, they're a significant provider of grants in lieu of taxes. So if you were to deny them the street lighting,
Dutnell's not.
it,
Dutnell goes up.
Dutnell goes,
No, Dutnell goes up.
I'm sorry, you're
Albert
right.
Head is
Yeah,
up into.
The back half, the emergency exit from DND is Dutnell.
There is an access there on the end.
Yeah.
On the very top.
The very top, yeah, so
Okay.
It's not that steep.
if Albert Head Road was closed, they could come out on Dutnell.
Yes.
The question would be, if I may, Chair, is whether or not there's,
You can come to the mic, please, Carol.
The question would be whether or not there's any contractual obligations to maintain the light. There would be something I would have your staff ask to see if there are any, and if there's not, then you can look at the option of having them removed. But it is sort of a misnomer. It's like the only subdivision in Machosen that has streetlights and curb and gutters. It's kind of that missing piece that has always been there. But again, I would question whether or not it's contractual, and if it's not, it's up to you to get rid of it.
Councillor,
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I had somebody the other day asking me about street lights, and I thought if these have to be actually replaced, and we are putting money into replacing street lights, and then saying to somebody else, oh no, we're only doing street lights for these people, but you can't have any. I don't know, I definitely put it on a low priority.
so I have a question to staff. Is it the street lights, or is it the light bulb, or the whole thing?
The whole thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So through the chair, I just want to ask a question. Do you know that? Do you know if we're under contract regarding what I was referring to, the subdivision approval? Do we have contractual obligations?
I'll have to look into that.
Okay. So on that, then I don't think we'll rank this. We'll wait for more information from staff. Yes?
Sounds good.
Or shall we rank it? What would you like?
I suggest we await the ranking till we find out if we're obligated to do it. That changes the ranking. The other thing I would be interested in, frankly, is what do the people on Dutton Road think about it? If we go out there and survey it and say, the lights aren't working, we better replace them. Have we talked to the people who live there who may be ready to let it go?
So through the chair, what I've heard about the residents' desire or non-desire about those lights is as to be expected. Some want it and some don't want it. So there has been residents that access the light and turn it off.
Oh.
Yes. So that's one of the issues.
There's a light switch.
Probably not. Maybe a BB gun or something. No, gun.
Okay, so we will put this back to staff. All right, the next one, Public Works replacement truck. High priority? Or no, start with low priority, Hans? One?
I
Yes.
have a question though.
Yes.
I guess my question is, how big is the need? And I think
Well, that would be my question as well. So how many dump trucks we have, how many people are manning them, and how often does it get used?
Yeah.
Could we go a year without? I know it's saying here 2024, but could we not have one truck for 1 year? It's probably used a lot for the snow plowing, which we get a few days a year. Yes.
So the current situation is we have a backup truck which didn't pass commercial inspection the first round. It had to be, I'll call it Jimmy rigged pass, so it barely passed. So the crew have informed me that for 2023, this coming winter, it definitely will not pass. So with that out of commission, that leaves us 3 trucks with no backup. And I've always had 3 plus 1. Now another thing to note about this truck is the delivery time is probably estimated at 18 months to be conservative, 18 months or longer. And they are manufacturing 13 trucks this year. So if we want to, we're looking at the winter 2024 delivery, we have to put in an order now. So we're not committed to pay. I've checked with the contractor who deals in the truck. We have no obligation to make a deposit, but we have to make a commitment that we will take the truck when it arrives sometime in 2024.
Okay.
So we're looking at a long lead time.
So is the figure here, the 80,000 for the deposit and then 20,000 payment? Is that?
So that was that information came to me late last week. So there'll be no deposit. The total amount at this point is 280. Who knows? By the time it's delivered. The contractor said he'll guarantee the price as much as possible, but of course we know some things are out of his control. He said he will try to lock in the price as much as possible. So he's saying he's quite optimistic that we can get it for 280 when it's delivered sometime in 2024.
Okay, so we have 3 trucks that we're using year-round, not just snowplow, because our flat deck trucks also have plows. Granted, they don't move on the same trajectory as the big trucks, and we can put salt and sand in the back. And we even have a fire truck that's coming with a plow soon.
So what catches my eye is this replacement truck will be funded by the equipment reserve. And that's fully funded by the reserve, and we have the money to do it? Great. So I'm gonna rank it high.
Any other discussion, council, before we rank?
Yeah. I understand that it's from the reserve, but it does come from the overall pool of our finances that the district have chosen. I know that it's difficult for us to make difficult decisions, and I empathize with all of you because you're in the position of making very difficult decisions on behalf of the community. But I think this is one that I feel more comfortable leaving it for at least another year before we can make a decision, because we've got these outstanding costs that we've never seen before.
Any other comments, committee? Okay. Question for staff, Sue Lynn. So we're talking brand new truck, we're not talking a good used truck?
No.
Okay. Yes, Madeline.
So how come we don't look at secondhand or gently used
Well,
vehicles?
that was my question, because last year we purchased a backhoe that was not brand new. And we have done similar in the past of well-maintained vehicles. So we have a lot of shiny new vehicles in our fleet, so that was my question.
Yeah, I just think that, oh, sorry, were you going to speak? I was just thinking that there are richer municipalities that may want to be upgrading their infrastructure, their assets. We may be able to get a vehicle that has been gently used for a couple of years. That's just a suggestion.
Well, and they are all tested every year, so.
Could we allocate the money for a new vehicle and then keep open whether new or used? Like, I know we have to leave the deposit, but it sounds like it's refundable, or did you say we have to
No,
commit?
we don't have to make a deposit.
Oh,
If
I
we
see.
commit to purchasing the truck, we do not have to make a deposit, but the contractual obligations imply that you will get the truck. And that's based on past history that, this contractor and Public Works crew have had is, he is willing to say, I'll order the truck for you without a deposit, based on our past experience, and we've never, refused the truck after we said we would. So,
Okay.
Councillor Rock?
I just think it's really important to have high quality equipment. We have such a small public works crew, and trucks do break down or get stuck, and I think having a good backup and having the crew not have to worry about older vehicles is should be a high priority for council.
Okay, so on that, let's rank how high priority it is. So, show of hands for low. And show of hands for medium. Show of hands for high, for a brand new truck. Okay. So that's a high. Okay, so fire department, all-terrain rescue vehicle. The request is for an additional all-terrain rescue vehicle, which was requested by the fire chief for $30,000. We have one already that we are using, still in good working order. It's about 15 years old. Does get used out on the trails and places where fire trucks can't go, or ambulances to bring people in, that sort of thing. So let's have a conversation about that. Shall we rank this, or do we have questions? Yes.
Well, it would be handy if the chief was here. Might be in the department, maybe you would know, but I'm just wondering if there's been cases where where there's been really need for more than one ATV or not, or just what the need really is.
I think
Is it to me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure what the need is, but I can speak to the UTV that, should I come up to the mic?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, please.
Just because the chief isn't here, so can't ask.
Probably speaking out of turn here, but I've got lots of experience with them.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think really that vehicle will bring 2 people to the scene of an incident and some equipment. So that would be good for a small time emergency. But you know, say if there was a need for more people, then there would be, say, 1 driver, and you would be importing one fire department staff at a time. So, and then of course, if that one broke down or something like that, or if there was multiple incidents, forest fires, etc.
So this ATV is actually a side-by-side?
Yeah,
It's
side
a
by side.
two-passenger, it's a
UTV,
two-passenger with a little,
little box in the back.
box in the back, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've got lots of places where that could come in handy. I don't know, I can't quite speak to the use of it, but I could sort of imagine how that would be handy to have a second one. And 15 years old is I don't know what the mileage would be on that machine, but 15 years old is probably getting fairly reasonably old for that one, so it wouldn't hurt to have a backup.
Especially, I guess, considering the amount of park area we have, as well as the Galloping Goose Trail. So, yeah,
Well, when I
can't-
spoke, sorry,
That's okay.
when I spoke with the chief, she was considering the other one being used for fundraising for other agencies. So it still is very operable. I know it doesn't get used like every day or every weekend, like
No.
a recreationalist would be using it. I know the Victoria Motorcycle Club has the first aid attendants from our first responders from the hall come out every year for the hill climb.
With that machine.
Yes, with that machine. So it doesn't get used as much as recreationalists, but it certainly has been an asset. And yeah, so let's rank it.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so hands for low. There's 4.
No disrespect to the chief.
No.
No, it's a request.
Yeah.
She always says people don't say no, so.
Dave.
I think it would be great to have an overall, not policy, but guidelines, and we also look at gently used vehicles. Correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Gray, but we're going to be transitioning to more climate-friendly vehicles in the future. So I'm reticent to vote for items that we may need replacing again. I think gently used secondhand would be a good way to at least investigate.
If I
Yes.
just speak to that one more thing, it's something, Sherry just reminded me of something. In the last year or 2, we were doing snow clearing, like project contracts and stuff for commercial yards and everything, and basically I think nationwide, the insurance companies have written snow clearing out of our insurance policies.
Mm-hmm.
So most people that were doing it legitimately aren't doing snow clearing anymore. We did tons of driveways in Machosen for residents, long steep driveways. People were stranded in their houses for days. So we cleared a ton of those driveways out. Most people that are doing it now, I think most people aren't doing it now. There's some people that are probably aren't insured, but that specifically would be another use for that UTV where the fire department could access, more remote houses, longer, steeper driveways and stuff like that. So that's, and in the case of, if we get enough snow, like this year was enough snow to really have a problem with that, and there could be multiple incidences. So that would be another one to speak to with one of those UTVs. They could fit it with a small plow, chains, and be able to access those places. Thanks.
I almost thought we did have a little plow for that, but I'm not certain. Okay, so that's a low ranking. Thank you for the background information or addition. The next one, also from the fire department, replace engine 6. There's 2 different timelines here again, looking in advance. 2024, $50,000, and 2025 for $450,000. For engine 6 is a frontline mini pumper. It's a 2009 model. I found it really interesting, just as an aside before we get too into this, an interesting document, very short here, that I'd like to read to you from UBCM. It's called Amendment to Fire Underwriters Policy on Fire Truck Replacement. Whereas the Fire Safety Advisory Council requires that all first-line fire engines should be replaced after 25 years of service, regardless of mileage and condition. And whereas some form of appeal should be available to small municipalities with tight budget constraints to extend the useful life of fire engines beyond 25 years of age, where a minimum number of fire calls are involved and the actual mileage or kilometers recorded is very low. Therefore, it be resolved that the Union of British Columbia Municipalities petition the province to amend the fire underwriters policy to have fire trucks and equipment retired from duty on the basis of on the number of miles or kilometers they have been driven on their certified fitness rather than on the 25 years basis. The provincial response was that the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General, the provincial government had previously indicated that private insurance industry standards were not within the control of the province of BC. This position has not changed. In 1995, the minister at the time referred the matter to the Fire Safety Advisory Council for its support for a stronger message to the insurance industry to amend municipal rating policies. The council, which existed at that time, considered the matter and endorsed the current insurance industry guidelines on the retirement age of these trucks. This position has not changed. Fire suppression continues to be a local government responsibility, including selection of firefighting apparatus, and the convention decision was endorsed. So just a bit of background information, because we have heard about the underwriters. And then I have more information if anybody's interested on technical refurbishing, or refurbish or not to refurbish, such things. So just a bit of background for the committee. So shall we rank this as yes, a question?
I don't know if I have. Okay, I think what you're saying now is there's that 25-year requirement in place in terms of insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So we in a way don't have much of a choice but to replace this one.
She said it was.
Sorry, am I getting that wrong? Or?
24 years versus 14 years.
So the food for thought there is, because we are a really small community, it's just something to think about, the fact that got brought forth. Clearly there was concerns about, always buying trucks, not, trucks that don't get a lot of use.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So long as they're the preventative, this other document is about prevention, maintained on a regular basis.
Yeah.
These are all factors that we need to consider.
Yeah.
If a truck sits there and doesn't get used as much in this department, that gets maybe 500 calls a year on average, it doesn't tire out quickly if it's properly maintained and such. Yes, Marilyn.
So it sounds like from the UBC resolution, it remained unresolved. We do have to replace after 25 years. This is a 14-year-old vehicle, not a 24-year-old vehicle, right? 2009?
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's a 14-year-old vehicle, so we have some time. I would actually like to hear more from the fire chief, to tell you. I feel like I need some more information on this.
Okay.
I know that the fire chief will give us requests. They're not necessarily their wants. I'm not exactly sure. They're musts, and so I really need to tease that out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will defer that one to staff. Okay. Councillor Gray?
And just when we hear back, is it paid out of reserve fund, or is it, how does it hit us?
It's the LB reserve.
Thank you.
Okay, so public safety, here's the big one. RCMP contract. Well, we know the answer to this one is important. We just don't have the proper figure yet, right?
So it's high.
So it's high. Yeah. Everyone agree? It's high. Okay. School site management and maintenance planning.
Can we just go back to that one? I'm sorry.
The police?
Yeah.
Yes.
I actually think that we should, well, we'll know more this week.
Yes.
I think it's going to be higher. I think it's going to be in the $1 million range with the other extra added-ons. I'm just wondering, so we can vote that this is high and vote that this, but I think we may need to add some money to that.
Okay,
that
so
amount.
we'll vote high for it to stay on here for the next discussion.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so school site. For the management and maintenance planning, $10,000. Yes?
What is the $10,000 intended to provide? Because this is for, so it's management and maintenance planning. And again, I don't know whether that's for a consultant to help us with the plan or it's,
Yeah.
So the current situation with the school is there is no overall plan for replacement of any of this, I'll call it a minor capital. So essentially, we don't want, so what this is to prevent us to be caught in a situation where there's that emergency, oh, that thing broke, because we did not anticipate that.
okay.
We're gonna have to replace it in 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it is. So this way just build a little bit of, in addition to having an overall plan of knowing what we need. So that means we'll assess what the conditions of different assets in the school is. We can plan for it, so we know in a year we have to replace whatever, ABC, whatever it is, better ideas. We'll build a little bit, just amount of unspecified items because we don't know what it is, but we should have a bit of contingency. So we're not, we don't find ourselves in a similar situation that we did with Macarthur. We just went, oh, we didn't have a choice, but we had to replace the.
Furnaces. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so as an example, if you were to look at the school site spreadsheet, it's got year-to-date $12,000. And I suspect that that has fluctuated through the last few years as well. No.
So I'm a bit confused. So this is from minor capital, so that implies that it's a capital expense. So this is an asset. This is like the replacement of the furnace, for instance. This isn't planning. This isn't the person that's going to be doing the planning. This is minor capital asset.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can I ask you a
Yes.
question?
Yes.
Such as example of what might be coming up. So we've got the furnaces have been replaced. Are you thinking of sewer, or not sewer, but septic? What do you
I couldn't tell you right now because I don't know. Nobody seems to have a good understanding of the condition of the assets. So there hasn't been an assessment of what the condition of the assets. So this is just really saying when we do the assessment and we know, at least we can plan for whatever has to be replaced. As of now, I couldn't tell you because I have no idea what might need to be replaced.
Okay, so you have another question,
Oh,
Mary?
that's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a question about the last statement. User management and facility booking is proposed to be undertaken by the proposed legislative service assistant. So my question is, why is it in this particular?
And just to speak about the overall, the management for the booking is need to be managed by that position, not that it's going to be included in $10,000.
So that person would be overseeing what needs to be done?
Coordinator management, coordinator placement and things like that. Yeah, that'll be part of the job.
Okay. Councillor Gray.
And through you, Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, of course.
The idea here then is that we have $10,000 available to do minor fixes as they arise. And that, I suppose, to Mr. Smirfitt's points earlier, that we'll find out whether 10,000 is the right number after a few years' time. So there'll be some, well, hopefully some cushion here. But that number could fall or it could rise once a larger plan's in place, we know what's coming, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Great. it seems to me it's a valuable asset to the school, and so we do need to have some money available to do this kind of work ongoing. Some of these costs, I suppose, might be covered under the maintenance agreements with MAC as a, there's a kind of dividing line between things that they handle and things that we handle. But these are, can you just comment with regards to that question, please?
So the minor capital, I think the agreement does not cover replacement of asset, because those are our assets.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so let's rank this. Any other questions? Okay, so show of hands for low. Medium. And high. Okay. So it's a high. Okay, school site commercial disposal bins. So schools' market rental spaces are now fully occupied, and we need to provide commercial disposal bins for the tenants' use. Discussion. Mayor Lily.
Is this in our contract? Is this the responsibility of the district, or is this the responsibility of the tenants?
Well, this is a question I have as well.
So in our contract, it doesn't specify commercial bins, but I can speak to the current situation arrangement that the tenants have to load the cardboard, whatever, bigger items after dispose of in their vehicle and dispose, take care of the disposal themselves. As opposed to, in commercial business spaces, you see where the bins available, they just go and dispose of the material in commercial bins.
And do they generate a lot of refuse?
I can't speak to that. I don't know, but I know they do generate it.
Okay.
Generate
So,
that.
well, the reason I was asking, and it sounds a bit backwards what I'm going to suggest, but we already have commercial disposal bins behind the fire hall, and if they don't have a lot, other than kitchen stuff, could they not maybe once we bring them in and bring it down to somebody, bring it to the bins behind the fire hall?
I could ask that question.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Marilyn.
I was just wondering, are those bins locked? I know that people are having a difficult time trying to find places for their refuse.
Well,
And I know that people are using our bins, so are they locked?
As of last summer, they were not, because I often saw people putting domestic garbage in there, so I'm not sure what the current state
So
is.
they will be locked, yes.
Okay. Good. So somebody at the school, if we chose to go that route, would have a key. Okay.
So we're really only looking at two tenants. We're looking at Instinct, right?
Not necessarily.
Oh, and
because
NACA,
we've
sorry.
got- We got
Yeah.
whole school being used by a variety of different people. I just don't know the volume of garbage that they're needing, or recycle. I don't even know what the recycling program is over in the school.
Do you know?
Hopefully they are recycling.
Because it doesn't seem like that they're not an industrial site, so you wouldn't think that there'd be a lot of rubbish, but
Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I guess the question is really how much refuse they've got to manage and what it looks like. It is a commercial site, it's light industrial classification. Perhaps we just find out from them, this is an interesting idea, is it close enough for them to use these other bins or not, and see if there's anything there for it, and just hear back.
Okay,
We want to make it easy to get rid of their garbage, I guess.
Yeah.
Certainly.
What does 5,000 get one these days for rubbish disposal? Is it a big bin that's emptied once a week, or?
I can't speak to the frequency of being empty, but that's about the price of getting in. So I don't know whether it's small, bigger, but definitely that's the price of $400 a month.
Okay, so should we refer this back to staff to explore further? Seems there's some logistics to sort out. Okay, so administration, freedom of information contract, an additional $5,000 on those fees. Mayor Little?
I'm loath to vote high because under the Freedom of Information and Protection Act, we have to provide the information. We need the body to actually do that work. We're in an unfortunate situation in that the demand is high. We are legislated that we have to provide the service, and I'm not sure if we have much choice here.
Right. May I ask CFO, how much are we paying at the moment for a contract?
So to date for 2022 is approximately $25,000. By keeping in mind that for the first quarter, all the FOI requests were handled in-house. So if we would look at over, if it was full year, of course, it's a guesstimate, but being close to 30,000 is not unrealistic if the cost of 2022 were handled by the contractor on a full year basis instead of just 3/4 of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Marilyn.
And I think that's a good point, Sue Lynn, because as I understand it, there was one employee here at the district that spent 3 months solid, 3 months wages doing one FOI. And so I guess it's caution to all of us if we can be as open and transparent as possible and avoid the people feeling they need to go the FOI route. That would be advisable, but
Okay, so
never mind.
let's rank this this line item: low, medium, and high. Okay, so let's go high.
Just one point, I ranked it high because if we don't provide this money, of course, the request has to be filled, but then the duty falls back on staff. So, yeah, you pay for it one way or the other.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, bylaw, legal fees, 10,000. Conversation, yes.
Yeah, I think this is probably way too low. A number of us were concerned in the election about dealing with bylaw infractions, specifically major issues that we might want to be more active on than in past, and that means there's a legal bill to pay. For example, I think an injunction, is in the $20,000, $30,000 range, so one circumstance might cause us troubles, in future. So we need to be prepared if we're going to follow through with some of those ideas that were put forward during the election.
That's a good point. Marilyn?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I'd like to ask a question to staff through the chair. So we had decided to, there was some program that we were going to buy into that would provide us with legal assistance on I think you said it was a weekly basis on a lump sum amount. What happened to that, and can we not use that, plan that we've used for some of this?
Through the chair.
Yes.
So that program will still be in effect, but that is for casual legal advice. So if we have some really quick questions of the legal counsel, that can be provided, included in the flat rate of $750 a year. However, not included in that is if any extensive research that needs to be done, or for example, if we were to go back to Councilor Gray's example of injunction, that obviously is a little more involved than just casual advice. Oh, can we do this? Can we not do that?
Mm-hmm. So
Yes.
if I may comment, what we heard, all of us heard from Don Lidstone when he gave us a briefing here regarding our contractual obligations and as well as enforcing bylaws. He did say to all of us that if you were wanting to enforce your bylaws, you better have that as loophole free as possible, and he recommended that all of the bylaws that we review and amend be passed by the lawyer. So with that in mind, I agree with Councillor Gray that this is low. If that is going to be a priority of this council, well, I hate spending money, but
Okay, so let's rank it low. Or is there any other discussion?
Through the chair. So I just want you to be aware that this is incremental over the base amount, whatever we have in the budget right now. So it's asking $10,000 extra. So it's not only $10,000.
Right. Yes, I understood that.
Through question two. So Sue Lynn, I see that what we have right now is $25,000 the legal side for the bylaw, so you're asking for an additional 10. Okay, just for clarity, great.
Any other questions, committee? Okay. Yes, Councillor.
Well, I guess I'm offering the numbers too small, so we can rank it high, but I think it needs to be increased. And I previously mentioned another 10 grand, but it may be more like another 30 grand. I'm not sure how to tackle that, but we'll learn more in the process. So
Yes.
I'm going to rate this high, and I'm going to say double it at this point and see where we're at a little way down the line.
So, so let's show of hands for ranking low, medium, and high. Okay, awesome. Road safety, crossing guard, $10,000. This is, as previously discussed in another meeting, a crossing guard grant towards the Hens-Hellison crossing for the future. That may not take place this school year, but certainly could start up as early as September, I presume. Any discussion? Councillor Bray?
Sure. When I look at the warrant that was presented at the Public Works and Protective Services Committee, we could see there that the recommendations on liability was to get in place the crosswalk and not crossing guards. Then we heard from Morgan Blay, who talked on behalf of the PAC at Hens-Hellison, and they, you'll recall, they had asked the parents whether this was a priority, and they said no, there are better things to spend the money on. So I'm going to rank this low.
Anyone? Councillor App?
I think in the warrant, they actually suggested that we not have a lighted crosswalk, that the numbers didn't warrant a lighted crosswalk. As far as the crossing guard, that just came as as a safety suggestion, because the concern has always been about liability there, and it seems like kind of a minimal amount to pay to kind of ensure that that it really is safe, because people see crossing guards, whereas they might not see a little kid in a crosswalk.
Mayor Little?
I would rank this high because it is a new feature. It will be a new feature according to the warrant. The recommendation was the crosswalk. It will be a new crosswalk for the school, for the children. I understand that the parents are taxpayers, but we as the district would bear the liability if something was to happen there at the crosswalk. And there's going to be more parking available across the street on Windover, so there will be more children crossing the crosswalk. One question that the public may have is, why doesn't the school district provide this? But they don't. That's not their policy. They funnel the money from the district or the district and municipality to the crossing guard, so they increase the stipend available to the learner's assistant, I think is what it was, to provide the crossing guard. I just think if we're going to have an asset like that, at least in the first couple of years, have the education component a part of that.
Right. Councillor Gray?
Yeah, I'll just say, one can imagine liability around everything that one does.
Mm-hmm.
Here what we did is we went to experts, and the experts who know and tell us about what we should do and who we can rely on, said they recommended components which we're moving forward to seek a grant to fund. We had desirable components, and then they had optional components.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the least necessary issue, or not necessary and only optional, and that's where the crossing guards sit. So I just have that thing about talking about priorities and things and where you're going to put money.
Mm-hmm.
It seems if it's not recommended, we don't face liability unless we talk it up and say, well, we think there's a liability. I don't think there's a liability, because I've got a report from an expert saying that's not something you want to do in this situation. So I'll leave it there.
Any other comments?
I'm going to rank this high, and again, at the risk of extending a benefit that you might not want to continue for forever. I think it would be a good move to do it for the first few years, for sure. So,
Right. Yeah, so in the news recently, just over the weekend, as I was preparing, as I was reading through all of this, there was a school actually who had a crosswalk in Victoria area, and in the region. And they took away their crossing guards, and they will be bringing them back because as much as it wasn't a requirement, they actually cited, and I have gone there numerous times watching the activity trying to cross the street, and now that we do have these flashing lights, that has helped, but it isn't enough. And these reports, as much as the experts say these things, I've been out there to see it. I'm not experiencing it with my children, but I think that certainly we should try this out, see how it works. If we don't need a crossing guard, then we don't need a crossing guard.
Right.
Yes, Councillor Gray.
I'll just add that bit, which is that this is different. I also read the same article. I believe this is a different kind of crossing where the parents will actually be crossing to get to the children aren't driving the cars themselves. So they're bringing the kids across that place, and it's for them to look in, as they would at any intersection, take care of that way. But I think that just distinguishes this circumstance somewhat from others.
Okay, so a show of hands for a low ranking. Medium and high. Thank you. Okay, administration. Chief Administration Officer, the CAO position has been filled on an interim basis by CFO since August of 2022. This option represents the financial impact of hiring an additional CAO. The expected full year cost is $179,500, including wages and benefits. As this is a staffing line item, I'm wondering if maybe this should be in an in-camera discussion. Any comments?
I agree, this is what we were going to be talking about
Okay.
next week. This and the legislative assistant, any of the administration will be discussed at that meeting.
Okay, so we will,
Can I just
yes.
ask for clarity?
Yes, please.
So, through the chair,
Yes.
Susan, we talk about these positions in an open meeting or in a closed meeting. I'm just not entirely certain. Obviously, it's a question for us to figure out the staffing. We will talk about it as suggested in closed meeting, but is there anything to discuss today here?
It's in the open portion just for the financial implications, so there will be no discussion about any details related to those two positions.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just to, and through the chair, just to be clear, this will be brought forward at an open meeting to be discussed. That's what we've done in the past is discuss staffing issues and staff costs, administrative costs at a closed meeting where we can have that open and full conversation, and then that will be brought forward in a Horizon report or through the finance chair, the results of that.
So I would suggest that we table that particular one until we've had that meeting and then bring it back. Does that suit the committee?
Certainly, does that apply then for the planning and the fire department ones as well?
I would actually include all of the staffing related topics.
Mm-hmm.
Committee, any comments on that? Yes. So that would be the administration, the planning one.
Firefighter college.
The firefighter call out, the casual labor, and the administrative. So the only one that's left on here would be the emergency program phone system. So is everyone in agreement that we put those 5 into an in-camera? Okay. Yes?
Yeah.
I see a show of hands. Everybody agrees? Yes. Thank you. Okay. So that leaves our last one here. Emergency program improvement for phone system. Funding is for a VoIP, which I think is a voice over.
Voice over internet protocol.
Oh, okay. And is that for, who is this for? Which
Fire
department?
department.
Oh, the fire.
Sorry, the emergency program.
Can you explain what it actually, how it's being used? Because there's only 2 staff members there, so I can't
I
envision.
couldn't because that's on the request that was
Okay,
given to me.
All right. Anyone else have any information on this?
I suggest we have the fire chief at the next meeting,
Okay.
please.
Okay. We're still within our time? Okay. Okay, so that's the one-timers. If we can move to the spreadsheet, the first section is the general government. We won't be ranking each line item on this. We will be here till next Christmas. However, I'd like to open it up for discussion.
Just picking up Mr. Smirfitt's comments earlier, I wonder, well, first of all, two things. I wonder if it's best use of our time to go through the actual spreadsheet right now, but I wonder if we could also ask staff to identify those items where there was a significant budget allocation and like less than 10% actually spent. So I forget the one that Gary mentioned.
There's quite a few.
Yeah, okay, well, where, again, something might have been budgeted for 60,000, but only 10,000 was spent. Or in the case of the business development fee, 10,000 budgeted, only 600 spent. So just to identify those where there are big discrepancies.
Okay. We had also asked that when we get these spreadsheets, if there would be some sort of a interpretive legend attached to each one, which we haven't seen yet. So I'm wondering if we maybe make a motion to include that and have this come back to us so that we can understand it more thoroughly.
Yeah.
Make that motion.
Well, okay, I will make, well, okay, so how should we do this? So I'll make the motion to ask staff to identify those areas where there's a major discrepancy in terms of budget and spending year to date. And then second motion is that that a legend helping us to better understand the budget is also included as well. And sorry, what, any more?
Yeah, I'll second that motion, but what I was looking for and what we had discussed previously is just not in novel format, but in bullet form, explanations of the different subcategories, expenditures, and just for everybody in terms of, it's sometimes difficult to read spreadsheets. For some people, if we can have a summary for the different categories so that that it helps the committee move forward.
Councillor Donaldson.
Yes.
Donaldson, I'm sorry. How about we take on the first motion? And I'll author that one, and then Mayor Little probably has some
That's
depth.
a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
the first motion.
To have staff identify areas where there's major discrepancy between budget and spending at the end of the year.
And do I have a second? Okay. So moved by Councillor Shukin and seconded by Mayor Little. Discussion. Councillor Gray.
Through the chair, Susan, is this practical at the moment, or I think Gary was referring to 2022 spending and comparing to what we're budgeting this year. Which is the comparison that's going to be more useful given our 2022 expenditures are not going to be up to date?
That's correct. We can go with the road if we do 2022 projection, keeping in mind that that's just that, it's just projection. If that's the number, which you have, by the way, in your package. So the projection actuals as of the latest actual. But definitely for the next meeting, we'll update the actuals with a comparison to, I can do two comparison, the actuals versus 2022 budget for the variances, and then the difference between the 2022 and 2023 budget. So there's two comparisons.
Yeah.
So one shows you the actuals to the budget, and what shows you the difference between last year's budget and the proposed 2023 budget.
Yeah. To be honest with you, sorry, Councillor Donaldson,
Yes.
for you, I'm less interested in a way in the difference between the budget 2022 to 2023. I'm more interested to see what we haven't spent actually in 2022, and if there's major, like significant issues. Sorry, significant areas where we haven't spent. Does that? And the reason for that is I do, like Shelley, I was at several of the meetings at the last go round, and there were things like, again, I pick on the business development budget, where there's an amount allocated and none of it's spent. So, yeah, that's what I'm getting at. And
Yes,
again, it may be helpful to.
There's some big gaps.
Yeah, I think the 2022 budget just helps you understand what the year-to-date means. So it's necessary to have it, I believe, in that format.
Yeah. No, I think that's what I'm asking is budget versus the actual. Yeah. So, sorry.
And it just depends how far along we are.
I was going to respond to Mr. Smirfitt's question on business plan as well as Councillor Shukin. So the intention of the business development fees is because we tax class 6, which is businesses considerably higher than residential. The money of 10,000 has been set aside with the intention that is all the businesses in our district that will come together and let us know, council, what they would like to do, what improvements they would like to know and sort of to do and how they would spend that money. So it looks like from historically that hasn't been spent in the last 2 years. It's because, well, COVID, that has been nothing that has been communicated from the business owners to council that what kind of improvements or expenses they wish to make and spend out of that fund.
So as an example, two projects that I am aware of that money went towards. One was the River Rock artistic work in front of the store. There was money spent on that. Another one was where the bike shelter is in front of the Broken Paddle little mall there. Money was put towards that. And I believe that it might be a different line item. There's some maintenance of that area as well. In speaking with some members of the business community, they're not even aware this money exists. So it's something that maybe as we look at community planning or the core review, that maybe we should chat with the business association. Yes, Councillor Rapp.
In the last term, Councillor McKinnon, that was kind of his deal. Remember, at least a couple of occasions, we did talk about the business development fund and uses for it. And he tried to get a hold of, sent emails out to various businesses and got next to no replies. So I think that was one of the reasons that it just kind of never got used. There was a suggestion for the electric charging stations was one idea for some of that money.
So again, maybe it's something we explore and make a connection with our business community, especially if they're being taxed for it. Okay. So, motion.
Okay, so I'll put this out. If people think it's a bad idea, you just vote
Yeah.
against it. Shukin's thrown out another lead balloon. No worries. But, again, a motion to identify those areas in 2022 where there was a major discrepancy of budgeted versus actual spending.
Second by Mayor Little. Any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And the second motion?
And the second motion was to have attached to going forward every report a summary in point form for the different categories, what we're looking at. I just have so many questions. It'd be great to have that summary. We talked about this with the CFO before. It just would be really helpful for the committee.
Okay. And a second to this motion, please. Seconded by Councillor Shukin. Discussion. Councillor Gray.
So are you meaning to say, for example, Mayor Little, that I'm not sure what a good one here would be, a pension expense, this refers to the pensions of the people paid under this budget, or
Yeah, just a more fulsome discussion on each category. Some of these, we'd be here until midnight discussing each individual one. Historically, we've gone through this line by line. It would just be really great to have a summary to go along with this. A lot of other municipalities and districts look at the SOOC budget, for instance. They have a summary statement. A lot of accountants do provide that, and I think it would be useful for us and for the public.
Okay.
So just a better description of what each item is that, I'm just getting it clear, or is it an analysis of the numbers?
No, I think we can pretty well figure out the numbers. Sometimes it's a little bit complicated, and because the value of the 2022 projection is lost when the 2022 budget item is just cut and pasted. So that value of that metrics is sometimes lost when, for instance, if we have budgeted for $1,000, we spent $1,300, and the projected is $1,000. You've lost that metric. We can all plainly see that. What I would like for all of council is just a fulsome description in point form of what each category is, not line by line, but what this is all about, and especially the ones that are not well defined.
So legislative services or personnel or admin office, those big categories.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the motion. Did we have a second?
I believe I did.
You did,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, and any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so if we go to page 3 of where the CFO has given us a finance committee report, at the bottom of it there is a recommendation that the committee receive the report and discuss the options and provide staff with input. So we've gone through this as much as we can, I think, for today. Because I would like to also hear from the public before we adjourn, and then prepare us for the next meeting. Do we need to make a motion of the changes that we did, or yes? Okay. So we had noted that, like, right, we had ranked the one-timers. Some things are coming back, some things are being discussed further. So I need a motion for this recommendation. We might have to reword this a little bit.
So the motion is for a recommendation for staff to receive input from the committee. I think that's what we...
Yes.
Okay, I will make that motion.
Okay, and a seconder, please. Second by Councillor Gray. Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
In favor.
All in favor and carry. Thank you. So did we get the...
Yes.
The motion and the seconder. Okay. Thank you, committee. Okay, so now I'd like to open up the meeting, this next part of the meeting, to the public for your input on what you heard today and any words of wisdom you can share with us. You're welcome to come to the mic, or questions you might have for us or so.
Looking at time, I'll make this very quick. Another statement that would be useful, I think, in looking at the operating budget would be a report on the status of the BC Safe Restart grants.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? And for what they were used for in 2022, and the amounts in each one, and a year-ending report. Last year, at the end of 2021, there was an unaudited report prepared, and it was attached to some document that I saw, and it showed that a carryover of $803,000. So it would be nice to know what you did with that 8,000, well, what the previous council did with the $803,000, and how much you have to bring forward in this budget, and discuss a plan of allocating it as well in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Marlene?
I just want to ask Councillor Epp to remember that was the restart grant 1.5 million. If we spent 800, we have 700 left. Do you remember?
Sorry, I can't remember the exact amount, it was something like that.
Okay, so we'll get that information for the next time. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? So on to item number 4, correspondence. On page 11 is Mr. Smirfitt's letter that he's referring to at the opening of the meeting. Anyone have any other questions, maybe for Mr. Smirfitt, or? And I'd like to thank Mr. Smirfitt for taking the time to actually write up the letter and share some examples for us. Going forward, there's a lot to still learn and mull over. Okay.
Can we have a short discussion about what Mr. Smirfitt was talking about? Is some of the information here is it looks like it's sort of padded in a way, not using his words, but and then at the end of the year we have a surplus. I would really feel more comfortable, given our overall fiscal state we're in and the costs that were coming down, if we can have a more realistic idea of what we're dealing with. Because if it's an item is budgeted for 10,000, we haven't used 10,000, we've only used 650 in the last 3 years. Why are we budgeting again 10,000 for some of those items? So I think that would be very helpful for my understanding.
Right. So a cleanup. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, this is my first time being involved in the district's finances, but I would think that will come once the year-to-date 2022 closes. Then we've got all the information. But to start changing the numbers now is a little bit early. So some of what Mr. Smirfitt's referring to, I think makes sense here in the document. But once year-to-date 2022 closes, then that allows the CFO to start making the moves on those other numbers. It's premature to be seeking that at the moment, but I'm not disagreeing with the general concept.
Although if it was a little bit more updated, I'm not speaking to the year-to-date necessarily, because we haven't closed the books on last year, but a point of reference is that we usually start these talks in October and November, so they're not going to be closed anyways. But there are some pretty big gaps through this document, even comparing to the one we got from the third quarter. There's some changes already, but still some big gaps.
Certainly, and I guess what I mean to say is that the work we did today didn't require all that cleanup. The work we did today stands on its own, and now we'll move to the next stage, as I'm understanding, and gradually tighter and tighter as we go. So I'm not myself worried or concerned at the moment. I can see how this progresses for us.
Right. So the work we did today was the one-timers. We haven't even gotten to the spreadsheet. I think what Mayor Little was speaking about was more. And what Mr. Smirfitt was speaking about as well was the spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just another question. What about the depreciation values? Will those, we've come to the end of 2022, will we have those depreciation values built into every category, or is that something that will be coming later in April, May?
That will be coming later when we do probably get the working papers ready for the audit. The auditors, the auditors will be on site in the middle of March. So definitely not, those are the work items, entries that are being worked on right now.
Isn't that an important feature for council to consider? So what you're saying is that's a fait accompli at that time?
So the depreciation will not change. So it's just numbers that we'll have to complete once we complete all the tangible capital asset additions and the disposals that we have. So once we're done to tangible capital asset, the TCA, then we'll have the depreciation, and then the next step is actually doing the entries in the accounting system.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other comments, Vicky? Okay, so that is all for the finance agenda of the special meeting.
I'm just wondering, the format that we have here, is it a good format for the public? We don't have that many people here, but actually we've got 3 times the amount we used to have. There used to be 3 of you, Shelley, Mr. Smirfitt, and Ms. Yoakum here. So we've got more people here than we have in the past, but is this a good format? Do we want to have it more of a workshop type meeting going forward, in terms of the public being able to ask questions in real time rather than waiting for their questions to the end? I think we might get more public input if we allow them to interject in. This is a finance meeting. It is a finance meeting that's meant to be more loose, not as formalized as the council meeting. So is there an appetite for that?
So if I could ask staff, are there other points in the meeting that we could invite the public to comment, or is that taken away from the business side of what we're doing here? So we do anything else, and when it's done, it turns into an actual workshop.
Probably, I would suggest that council have their discussion, and then after council's discussion, invite the public up, and then that would probably create more council or committee discussion, but and stay away from the back and forth.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments, committee? Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, second by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Carried. Opposed? Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Transfer.